I don't know. They tried to spotlight me a while ago, you know. So.
I can turn on whatever y'all want.
Well, I don't need anything. I've hopefully got it all up here. If I don't forget it before we get there.
Read
So.
it off the screen too. So
Do what? Yeah.
you read it off the screen too.
Well, I can see I can see what I want to see. How's everybody doing this evening? Glad everybody's here. Maybe we can shed a little light on the blessing that we was given to be able to go to Israel. And I said that's a really humbling experience, is the fact that you get to walk and go in the same areas that you know Jesus walked. And sometimes it just really brings it home to what he did and what he went through and the different areas that he was there. What got me more than anything, I never had really sat down and thought about it, but if you get to looking at where he traveled and the distances that he traveled on foot, I mean, it's amazing, because like from Jerusalem over to Galilee it's like 60 some odd miles. That's not a little short trip you take off on foot. Not for me anyhow. I don't know about anybody else, but huh?
When did you go?
We were there in, what was that? I think it was 17, wasn't it? I think it was 17.
We went
Oh, well, good.
Wow.
Maybe you can keep me straight then. Okay, well, let's get started. Glad to see all of you tonight, and hope we can shed a little light. Is our next slide. We got picked up at Tel Aviv airport. We tell you a little story about going through the the port's down under the bank there. That's the old lighthouse and the old buildings that was with the port. And so, but that's just a beautiful old stone building, and I guess it's years and years and years old. Go next. You find all of these things in different little areas and nooks and crannies and streets. And this is here is a sculpture that one of the Jewish people made, and it's he's an artist up there, but that's held by 4 cables about a foot off the ground, and it's kind of like a planter, and that's an olive tree in the thing, and it's growing. And basically what they said that the thing was about that was that they were going back to when they were in Germany and in all the concentration camps, and all of them and their children and everything that was over there got killed. And so they said that that was cutting off their roots. You know, so that's what that's supposed to signify. So now we're on out to Caesarea, which actually the Romans and Caesar the Great, he's the one that decided to do all of this, as they decided to build this new Caesarea. And this is the new port of Caesarea, which basically takes the old port of Hafo place. And this is just a amphitheater that's there. If you go to the next slide, this is all of the buildings and stuff that was in this new building era, and they built all of it down by the sea. This is all bathhouses and living quarters, and that far left building that you can see over there was the palace. That was where Caesar came whenever he wanted to take a vacation and come down to the sea. So, next slide. This is the inside of the amphitheater, and they still use that amphitheater today. They'll have concerts and stuff down below, and you can sit in the amphitheater. Next slide. This is one of the sculptures outside of they have 3 or 4 out there, but this was when they were cleaning up the port out there after they started cleaning up and redoing all of the buildings down there. This is pulled out of the port, and it's a statue of a shepherd boy carrying a lamb, and that was that's some of the Roman sculpture that's there. If you go to the next slide. I took this one, that came out of the same thing, but I just took that picture, and what they say is that a Roman sculpture is immaculate, everything that you can see. But if it's backed up to something or something like that, the back part of it's not finished, but all of the things that you're looking at, look at the detail. You can see the veins in the foot, the toenails, everything. Next slide. This is the beginning of the aquifer that furnished the water to the development out there on the coast that they did, and this is the continuation of that aquifer. And that was all built by Mr. Herod. It's just another picture showing all of the expanse of what they had out there. I mean, that was a large project that he did there. So just see some more of it. Now, riding the bus, it's kind of hard to get pictures. So, time they tell you about it, it's already gone. But that is the American Embassy there in Tel Aviv. That's just a plain looking building. It's not anything fancy. Next slide. Okay, this is the Church of Annunciation. It's built on the early home of Mary's childhood, which evidently where she grew up and everything. So if you want to go to the next, get back. Can you back up one? Get back to that. That church is so ornate on the outside with all the different writings and sayings on it. And what I didn't have pictures, well, I have pictures of them. I just had so many pictures, I can't put them all on a deal for a presentation. But there's all kinds of plaques and pictures, and the doors are ornate. I mean, when the Catholics come in and do something over some kind of a religious site, they do a wham-bang job. You know, they've got every little innuendo or whatever on everything that they think they can hang it on. So, but anyhow, go back. There you are. This is inside the church, and as you see, you're looking down into a grotto. But this is the supposed home of Mary. Next slide. As you can see, actually, they've cut out the back side, so you're looking at where they would have went out to the street. So you're looking at the house, the stairway going up, be going out to the street. And you'll find that in the old days anyhow, most of the people lived underground in caves. There's tons and tons of caves up there. Next. I didn't get to stop and really take a picture of it, but Mary's well is just back in that, probably closer to that big tree back there. And it was 2 miles from the church to that deal, and that's where Mary would have to walk to get water to take back to the house. And this is Caesarea. And anybody want to tell me what happened in Caesarea? Jesus was in Caesarea with Mother Mary. This is actually Cana, but I'm sorry. I said Caesarea. Cana. This is when he said his time was not yet come, but she insisted, and he turned the water into wine. This is another shot of the same city there, Canaan. After we left there, we went to Hoffa, and this is a night arrival. Basically, starting up in the upper left, there's a Baal, or Baha, I don't know how you pronounce it, chapel there. I don't know what kind of religion it is. I've got another picture of it. But they have beautiful grounds and everything there. And then the rest of the pictures are just the city at night. And then there's the picture from the bottom looking up to the temple up on the hill. Next. Okay, this is church in the Mount of Beatitudes. And this is up. Catherine the Great was one of the people that did a lot of exploring and a lot of building there in some of the churches and stuff, because they wanted to try to remember all of the places were of any importance, I guess you want to say. So they said that, you know, this church is probably not necessarily built on where the Beatitudes was, but they got as close to it as what they thought they could, you know, find out where it was at. Of course, when Catherine was there, she was She was, what was that? That was about, was 100 or so years after Jesus was resurrected that she found a lot of this stuff, because there were still people that knew the history and where things happened and the different things. So she kind of pointed out a lot of stuff. Go to the next slide. Peter's mother's house, that's not actually her house over there, but they're having a dig now they think they found it, so it's in that direction over on that hill. And this here, we've always talked about Mary Magdalene's house in Capernaum. And this is what they're digging there, that is the supposed house of Mary Magdalene. But I didn't realize, but the name Magdalene, actually this county, all this area, is Magdala. And that's what the area is called. So her name, that just denotes her from the other Marys, is that she's Mary Magdalene. If you look back up, they stopped there. According to our guide, anyhow, there's an old trail that goes up that valley. And they said that if you follow that old trail, you go all the way back to Jerusalem. And they said that's where Jesus walked, that trail coming right down there. Well, if you turn from where I took that picture around to the other side of the bus, that's where they're digging Mary Magdalene's house. So probably when he walked from Jerusalem or wherever he was at to Galilee, while he walked right by her house. So I'm sure that that's how they probably met or whatever. So that's just my personal opinion anyhow. So, and this is the area around Galilee. That is the Lake of Galilee. And this is the Capernaum area. Next. After I did some research, I found out where we were and where I took that picture, and what she said was not correct. I have up there the ruins of Carsai. I think it is part of the old ruins of Capernaum. But can somebody tell me what happened at Carsai since we got it up there? No takers? You remember all of the, well, I don't know, some scriptures say 1, some say 3, some say 2. Madmen that were living in the graveyards, and Jesus came to Carsai to minister over there, and he has cast all the demons out into the hogs, and they ran off into the sea. Okay, we went down and took a little boat ride out on the Sea of Galilee, and that boat up there in the right, top right, that's the one that we rode in, but they've got all kinds of little boats out there that they take you out on the sea. Next. And if you look straight, almost north from there, up on just over that ridge is what they call the Golan Heights up in there, and they said we were about, at one point there, we were about 30 miles, I think, from well, I'm brain dead now, can't even think of that, Jordan, up in north. So that's where all the skirmishes are at most of the time. They always back and forth in that. Okay, now we took a drive down to the land of the Philistines, and as you can see, I'll tell you, the thing that really got my attention about the land of Israel, and this was all over out there, but just look at all of the nice orchards, and somebody liked to make a wild stab at what they got under the white canvas out there, the covering. I never thought anything about it because I figured, well, they was just like we were about where we were at. But I get to thinking after I get to looking on the map, they're a little farther south than what we are. So, but that's bananas. They got bananas underneath that, and then oranges and olives, and they have the most wonderful fruit over there. I said we got over there and they had oranges over there, and grapes and stuff in their morning buffets, and man, I'd head for that orange deal and grab one of them oranges. They was about as sweet oranges as I ever ate. Next one. Okay, this is kind of drive down to the ancient land of the Philistines, and back on the hills over there, according to our guide, she said that's where Samson and Delilah romped over there and played. This is part of the land of Dan. You read that in the Bible. These are just more pictures of the land. It's actually kind of a big valley down in through there is what they call the land of Dan. And this is just another picture out through there.
So is that the gas station?
No, that's kind of like a mini mart or whatever they call it back here. It's a sort of a grocery, and yeah, it's got fuel too. So
That's the quick stop.
yep.
Did they refrigerate their soda pop?
The what?
Did they refrigerate their soda pop? I never saw soda.
I don't know. We didn't even have a soda while we was over there, but I'm sure they did.
Well, when we were in Thailand, you went in and they did not refrigerate their sandwiches, but they refrigerated their soda pops. But they were lukewarm. They were barely cool, and the place smelled like spoiled tuna fish.
Oh yeah. Well, I can understand over there. I think from what I've read of Thailand, I think they're a long ways from being anything like Thailand. As far as I was found up there, they're very sanitary. They refrigerate everything. They take care of all their foods and stuff. And like on their morning buffet breakfast, while you go down through there, and I said, I've always liked oatmeal, but my gosh, they had a way of making oatmeal that was even better than what I used to make. Man, they do it with, evidently they put the milk and cream in the oatmeal and then cook it. And my gosh, it's good. Okay, now we're getting down to the land of the Philistines. And Philistines was just another tribe that was just borderline with Israel. And basically, if you stop, this basically is a pickup place for a bus that was wide enough he could pull a bus off. But if, according to the guide that we had, back up above that green up in there and back in that area, that's where the Israeli encampment was when the story of David and Goliath came about. But that was their encampment. This is kind of looking out at some of the hills and stuff there, and this is the valley, just turned around from where I was at. This is the valley.
Hold up.
Hold up.
Allie has had a horse accident, and they applied her to Fayetteville, to the hospital down there. So, Joe, I would like for you to come up here and get the oil, and I'm going to stand in for Hallie. Y'all all come up around and pray for me, for Hallie, that the Lord would touch her and we know we know how serious, because we know it's serious enough that they got a flight or two Fayetteville. Precious Lord. Going around, folks. Precious Jesus, Lord, according to the scriptures, I anoint you in the name of Jesus Christ. Jesus, we ask you to touch Allie right now, Lord. And let this not be as serious as what they may be thinking that it is. But if it is, Lord, help the doctors to get her through this and to get her back up. Lord, we ask that you do this in your holy name. We know that you can do this, and we expect you to do this because you said, ask and you shall receive. And Lord, we're wanting Hallie to receive your blessings right now. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Somebody wants to tell us she's right. But,
Thank you.
No, that's quite all right. Okay, we're back. Now we're kind of looking at the deal. If you look at kind of in the right corner there by that, where you can see that power pole or light pole, you can see a little ravine or creek that kind of runs down through there. It runs into a larger one that runs down more in the middle of the valley. But next slide, please. And whoops, backs up one. I was thinking there was one more. Anyhow, that's where they go back to the one that you there. You can kind of see the hill over there on the other side where you come down the valley and then up on this side. So evidently that's where David and Goliath met, down in that valley there. So there's, I know some of you know, but you know why David picked up 5 stones? I don't think he thought he was going to miss.
Goliath had brothers.
Oh, yes. He had 4 more brothers. Okay, go ahead. And these are, if you look, if you can see below where the seats were in the bus, but you can see the rock pens, and that's the shepherd's field, they called it, or that's where the shepherds kept the flocks that they used at the temple, the perfect sheep and everything. So you can go on to the next one. This is looking back in the city of Jerusalem. And this, we were over on the Mount of Olives whenever I took this picture. Okay, this is the humble gate at the Church of the Nativity. And Miss Bev is getting down to go in. So, like I said, there's all kinds of ornate stuff in the church, and it's a Catholic church. Next slide. I don't know if you can see, but do you see those posts there that's got all that writing and stuff on them? We were told that that's the graffiti left by the Knights Templar whenever they were in the region. These are just another shot inside the church. And this is a scene that you see most of the time whenever you see the site of where Jesus was born. But this supposedly is the grotto. And it's kind of an amazing story. I'll tell it to you, is that whenever they built that church there, they didn't know any of this was there. They knew that this was the place where it was supposed to be. They built the church there. Years later, a lot of years later, they were having trouble with their floor in the back corner of the church. And so they were going to try to fix it, so they had to tear up the floor and go in. And when they did, they opened up the cavern and they found actually the cave there where Jesus was born. So we all have, I always get tickled. It's not funny either, because we get told so many different things, and we were raised believing everything, and all of a sudden you find out that a lot of what you thought you knew, you didn't.
Hey, Charlie?
Yes.
When you went from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, did you have to change buses and go through the guard and all that stuff too?
No. Our guide was a former military person.
So we had to have a new guide and
Yeah.
everything, and go through the checkpoint and through the big wall to get them.
Well, if it hadn't have been for her, yes, we would have. She was able to get off, talk to the guards, talk to the people there, and then we were allowed to go on through. But yes, that she made the comment that that's what most people had to do, but evidently she was high enough up in the rankings there that she pulled some weight, so I don't know. But getting back, a lot of the things that we see, these Christmas cards, we see what all of the artists put together for Christmas and etc. that has the manger scene like a barn and all of the shepherds, wise men, and everything together. Well, it didn't happen that way. So basically, the shepherd fields out there that I showed you earlier on that picture, that's where the announcement was made by the angels that Jesus was born, and to the shepherds. And then this here shows that part of that grotto back on the upper left is kind of a manger type deal. They've got so many fences and stuff around them, you can't. And then the other one is another one that was sort of a manger area, as was the one down in the lower right. And the other one was just a pretty picture window in that church. I just took a picture of it while I was there. This is the rebuilt upper room that Jesus had his Last Supper in. And they, the story they say, or that they told us, was that evidently that room, I don't know whether it got destroyed or something happened or it burned, or I don't know, but that they said that it was partially destroyed, and so they rebuilt it back. Then whenever the occupation was, well, they they turned it into a mosque. That's the reason you see a lot of the pretty windows and stuff in there. And so now that Israel is back in Jerusalem and stuff, so they've now reclaimed it and still call it the upper room. And so that's where the supper was. Actually, that's the doorway into the King David's tomb. They wouldn't let me take any pictures inside there, but I actually got to walk in, and you could actually touch the lid of the casket there. There's the stone sarcophagus. And so you got to walk by and touch that. Okay, we're on the Mount of Olives and viewing back to the city. And basically the wall that you're looking at there on the city wall, that's your eastern wall. So you've always heard about the eastern gate, the eastern wall. That's part of it. All of these things that you see down in the foreground and all the way down and even up on the hillside on the other side, those are all tombs. The reason they're situated in the angle that they are, they're all facing east and west. So they said that the reason that they did that, people started doing that, was that Jesus is supposed to come on the side of the eastern gate. So they wanted to be buried so that whenever he came, they could all stand up in the direction he was coming. Next slide. This is a Mount of Olives, and this is an old olive tree. They've said that some of those olive trees in there are almost 2,000 years old. And that's one of the gnarly ones there, but that's not the oldest one. Next slide. This is just a garden that they've got built up there, and it's a rebuilt garden. The old Mount of Olives used to be just covered with olive trees all over the thing. Well, now they've got it cut down to a postage stamp almost. So that's supposedly the oldest olive tree in the garden. Okay, on the Mount of Olives is the Church of All Nations, and it's just a very beautiful church. Okay, standing on the Mount of Olives, this is the Dome of the Rock, looking at it from Mount of Olives. Of course, that's a little bit enlarged because it's not that close. That's the bane in the side of the Jews. That's the one thing they wish they could reclaim. The Garden of Gethsemane is not too far away from where we were at there. We didn't go back in there. I don't know where exactly it is from that area. Some of you people maybe that's been there, maybe you got to go over to it, but this is the Museum of Israel, or Jerusalem, and it's miniaturized. This fella he's built back as close as it can back to the time of the temple and when Jesus was there. Any buildings that you see in that model there that have a red roof on them, they were Roman buildings or houses for Romans or Roman legal buildings or whatever. Next slide. This is a picture, miniature picture of that is the replica of the eastern wall, and behind the eastern wall, that's the eastern gate, and behind that is the temple. And that supposedly was Herod Antipas's house. This is a real close-up of what basically the temple looked like according to what they have built back there. You've probably heard the, well, I know everybody's heard the stories of, but they're, like I say, the Catholics go through and do a little bit of this and that and everything else, but supposedly this right here, this area was where Jesus fell, couldn't carry the cross anymore, and they had Simon pick it up and carry it for him. And this is Station 2. I don't have a clue about what that means. This is Station 3, and according to what they said, anyhow, was that he got to stop there long enough to maybe rest a little bit and get a drink or whatever, and he got to talk to Mary, his mother. This is Via Dolorosa Street. You can't get down it now. Well, you can, barely. They got so many vendors and shops and stuff on the walls and down it, you can't walk it. But that's the street that Jesus carried his cross down. And the garden of the garden tomb, they call it. But this is an olive press, and that's a catch of that. Just above that was a rock line deal in the ground, and they would take and throw the olives in there, and then they had a huge, big old stone that they would place on top, which slowly pressed the oil out of the olives and would catch it in the vat. Next slide. We were getting a lecture there about the cross, the crucifixion, and all of the things that went on there. And one of the other things, I said, we always get these pictures of the three crosses up on a big hill. Evidently, that's not quite the case, according to them anyhow. But back just to the left of where he's standing, right then where those trucks are parked, he said that was probably about another 30 to 40 feet deep at the time whenever Jesus was crucified. Actually, that was an old quarry, and then they actually turned that quarry into a dump, a garbage dump. And that's where all of the crucifixions seem to have taken place. Next slide. They always hear it called the place of the skull. If that was deeper down and you was looking maybe at the rock, I can almost see an eye. But if you look at that rock face, you could probably maybe make out a skull. I don't know. That's what they said anyhow, that's probably where it was at. This is their garden tomb that they have there, and they have a stone out there that is representative of what kind of stone they used to roll over the tomb entrance, but one that they had out there was only about, I want to say about 3, maybe 4 foot. And I don't think that would have been the one that they put over Jesus's, but anyhow, that's neither here nor there. This is a preparation room or area of that tomb. When you walk in, this area right here where the ladies are standing. That's what they call the preparation room, where they prep the body. Next slide. These are the benches of where the body would have been laid. And evidently this is a kind of a model of what all of the tombs was like. They don't make the claim this is where he was buried, and some scholars don't think this is where he was buried either, so I don't know. Not for me to guess, I guess, but this is the Wailing Wall. Of course, you can see right up on top of the Wailing Wall, Dome of the Rock. And as I was taking this picture, there was a woman down there, no photos, no photos, no photos. So anyhow, I got one in there anyhow. This is a chapel of Dominius Flavius, and it was built in the shape of a tear. And this right here, it's just down the hill a little bit from the Olive Garden and stuff that was up there, but that's said that he built it in a tear because Jesus wept. And you're looking back at the Eastern Wall and Mount of Olives and all the tombs that are down through there. Okay, we're now going down toward the Dead Sea. These are Bedouin people that are there, and they have no particular religion. They have no particular association with any type of government or anything. They're basically nomads. They just roam, go from place to place. And that's kind of a Bedouin shack there, so you can see they just throw those things up and live in them until the grazing goes away, and then they move somewhere else. Kind of hard to see, but there's sheep and camels over there on the hill. And this is another picture of Bedouins. A couple of kids out there playing. This is the caves of Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. This is after you come down into the Dead Sea, and that's a bluff along that side. Well, the little shepherd boy that found the Dead Sea Scrolls was a Bedouin shepherd boy. So, but that's where these caves up there is where they're still working on those caves. They figure there's more stuff in there in some of those caves, so they're still doing some searching around there. This is a Joshua apple, they call it, and it's in bloom, and the fruit is deadly poison. Masada. This is their Masada National Park, and so it was a joy to get to go up that and see what that was. These are some of the artifacts that they've found and dug up while they were doing all of their reclaim up in there, but some of that's actually porcelain, they said. So these are what balance weights look like that they use for their balance scales to weigh their products and stuff. So those are all found up there. Okay, this is where you walk on the rest way up to the top. I want you to take a look and kind of imagine, but you can see right along that little line or edge here where that small hole is, and you come across, that actually goes all the way around that whole mesa top. See the holes that are cut in the side? Well, that's a little bit of a downward slope on that deal. So what happens is all of the rainwater that falls, not a lot, but what all does fall, that runs off the top of that. Masada runs down the side, runs into a little trench, runs through those holes, back into a cistern that's underground. That's the reason the Jews were able to last so long against the Romans up there on Masadas. And actually, what's kind of ironic about it is Herod the Great's the one that built all of that stuff up there on Masada. And that's just some of the ruins up on top of Masada. That's taking a look off the top down. You kind of see the Dead Sea in the background there. Enough said, you don't really have to explain that picture. Of course, they've always got their things that they'll get you money if they can, so you can take a camel ride. Beverly was mad at me because I didn't tell her the camel rides was down there. That's the people down in the water, they're taking their baths and floating. That's they told us that looks like foam on the edge, but said it was actually some sort of a calcite or calcium deposit that kind of the water keeps washing and it kind of brings it together, and it's actually a little like sand, I guess. Only it's a little bit lighter.
Did they have that black pit there where you could get in it before you got into the Dead Sea?
Yeah, they had up there where I took those pictures, but they had where I took the picture of the deal. If you walked inside of that, you walked in and you had to do all your changing up on top, and then you had to walk down we didn't go down there because I don't like climbing hills up and down, especially that steep, but we had to go all the way down, and you could change. They had the change houses up there on top, and you walk down to the water.
It was right down into the water, people getting in it, it's black, looked like tar, but it wasn't.
Oh yeah, that's that mud they call it, or whatever they call it, is supposed to be good for you. It's high,
Get in there and wash it off in the Dead Sea.
yeah, it's high in mineral content. In fact, there where I took the picture of that Joshua tree. We were stopped at a place there that they made all different kinds of I guess lotions and everything, and they were pretty high dollar. Okay, this is the last of the slides, but off in the distance, actually that's a fig orchard down there. You wouldn't think down in there next to all that salty water in that bottom that they'd grow anything, but that's a fig orchard. Just the other side of that is the city of Jericho. And that's where the Israelites basically came into Jericho from wandering in the wilderness. And that's the end of that.
We didn't get to go to Jericho because at that time the Palestinian boys were throwing rocks at the bus.
Yeah. Mhm.
So we stayed out on the highway.
Well, we didn't get to go into the city, but
You did?
no.
And we didn't get that close, we never even saw them.
But has anybody got any questions?
Did you enjoy it?
Oh man,
It's something, isn't it?
we was talking to one another here not too long ago that if it wasn't for that dadgum long flight, having to sit in that airplane for 6 hours, I said I'd go back over in a heartbeat. But it's I got sick coming back because the way they had us on our itinerary up there, they had us out that day. We didn't get back in till about 6, I think it was, 6:30. Then we had to go eat. Then we didn't get around to going back to bed until 8, something, 8:30. We had to be up packed and in the lobby at 2. And so we got back up there, and I said I was about wiped out anyhow. And I said I think I was just wore out. I was basically a time we flew back, because we flew to Frankfurt, and then had an 8-hour layover, and then had to.
You had the opportunity to be baptized in the Jordan River. Did they give you that opportunity?
Don't get. No, we didn't.
Well, I didn't get to do it either.
Yeah,
I got sick.
we met a lady at, a wonderful Christian lady and her granddaughter in Chicago. And she had Globus, and that was who we were traveling with. And I said, oh, I hope we get to go together. Well, we didn't. She had a different tour manager. We had this lady. And she said, yes, she knew, she was a Christian, she was not. And I asked, I said, I want to be baptized in the Jordan River. She said, oh, okay, I'll put that on the itinerary. She didn't even go to the Jordan River.
Oh,
Yeah,
We
they
didn't even
baptized
see,
a bunch of
they
them.
baptized the
She was
man.
sicker.
but the other girl did.
She got to do it.
Yes, and she was baptized.
Well, we had eaten there close by Peter's house.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not saying this right, but I ate flappalappa or something. And I was out for the whole day. I mean, I was sick. I did not, that was the day that everybody else got to go baptized. Of course, he stayed with me, so we didn't get to. But anyway.
Well, we were tell you the story about that. I said I've been run out of a lot of good places, but that wasn't one of the good places I got run out of. And so, but I said we went in and looked at the menu and the prices on it, and I told her, I said, "Are you hungry?" She said, "No." She said, "No, I'm not that hungry." And I said, "Man, I tell you what," I said, "the prices they got on that thing." So we went over to the little snack bar we went in and got us a ice cream, and I don't remember what else. We got a couple of 3 snacks. Went over there, sat down at the table to sit there and eat them. Pretty soon, the guy comes over and says, "You guys are going to have to move." He said, "These tables are for people that's eating dinner." I said, "Okay." So we go out on the patio out there, sit down out there. Didn't much more than get started eating again. They come out there and say, "You guys are going to have to move." So I said,
You wasn't welcome there, Charlie.
"We wasn't. I wasn't spending. I wasn't giving them my money. That was what it was running." But I said, "I'm not tight, but I'm a little bit frugal."
Did you get to go to the market where all the spices were? And see, it's really different what you're showing us than when we went, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really different.
You
So-
went 16 or 17, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we went no six.
At 12, at Labor 12,
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
That Via Del Rosa
Yeah.
was open.
Yeah.
We walked the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well,
We went to
walked
every
it, but it
station.
was one, I had to walk behind him because they had so much stuff on each side.
I mean, it was almost single file going down.
It was, Jason back in, back in my,
It was wide open.
It was
Oh,
like,
no.
it was a lot
They
different
had so much
looking, you
stuff
know,
in there.
although it was a great experience. for
And
both.
the Jordanians, they're
They're rude.
yeah, but they must eat more sweets than anybody I ever saw, because every place you go the Jordanians were around or had anything to do with. I mean, they had candy strung up everywhere around there. So
People over there, we went to a place that our guys we had knew someone that did carvings out of Hollywood. Out of Hollywood.
We got.
we got carvings.
Okay, well, what happened to us was, they showed us one that had crack down the back. You know, it was still a one piece and everything, but we don't want that one. Okay, that's fine. Guess which one they built?
Yeah, right.
That's the one we got.
I got my children all a nativity set that was carved.
They had to mail them to us.
They did,
But
and he got his son the most beautiful picture of a donkey with Mary and Jesus on it, and Joseph leading it. It's beautiful.
Well, we got-
And it was tall.
We got
Yeah.
one with Mary and Joseph holding the baby.
Yeah.
But it was.
But it had the crack.
Well, this was
You know, you can't return it. You can't just run right down the street and all that.
was that in Bethlehem where you got that?
No, that was the last place we stopped. Where was that? This guy, this is my friend that's got that.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. No, she took us over when we went into Bethlehem, she took us into, and they pulled up, the bus pulls up out there at the store. They say, okay, and we're in the Jordanian side. Says, okay, everybody sit on the bus, don't get off, don't do nothing. Said, have to go in and talk to. So she gets off the bus, goes, there's not a window in this place. The doors look like they're a foot thick. And so we get sitting on the bus, and pretty soon she comes back out, and she said, okay, they're ready for you. Okay, well, we all get off single file, go into that building. It is a big building, and they had a lot of stuff in there. For most of it was olive wood, and they swore up and down that it was all local carved and everything else, that they didn't, and that, you know, it was just a Christian, more of a Christian carving, whatever it was. But anyhow, I went in there, and we all went in there and looked around. Of course, they're high pressure salesmen anyhow. So we were looking around at the different stuff. Well, the one that, what I'm getting back to while I was going to tell you the story, but whenever I finally got him jewed down low enough that I thought I could afford that piece of carving, why, he said, I'll tell you, he said, you're going to get the same one that you looked at. He said, you're going to get the same one. And I said, how do I know? And he said, he picked that thing up, turned it over, handed me a pen. He said, write your name on the bottom of it. I said, okay. So I wrote my name on the bottom of it. He said, now take a picture of it. Okay. He said, when you get home, he said, when you open up your box, he says, that'll be the one that you got. Sure enough, when I got it home, that's the one I got.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We didn't get the one. Of course, looking at us, we were easy.
Yeah, right. Well, I think they, but, you know, it's,
But we
those,
went from Israel, from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, it was a big deal. I mean, you had to go into that
Yeah.
land in there, different guide, different driver, the whole spirit. But we got in there. They
Yeah.
were nice. They were just as nice there as they were.
oh yeah, they're
You talk about a wall, and when you went through there, that wall, that's a wall that they all put on.
yeah, I know it.
30 foot high and slick.
Yeah. Well, I said, another funny story, but when we come back out of that store, got back on the bus, of course, they had the doors open waiting on her to get on. Well, they had all of these barkers.
Yeah.
They were outside there, and they were trying to push hats and everything else, and they were trying to keep them beat off the bus, you know, and so, but it was kind of a funny thing to watch all that go on and see.
I think they commercialized it a lot since we were there,
Yes.
because we're seeing things that I don't believe that they, you know, some of the buildings that are, like they come and go, you know, and this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think that.
But I got to talk to different people there in Israel, and I said some of them really nice people, and it's just always a joy to talk to them, and they're all friendly. But they always tell you, said, we love the Americans. Says the Americans, we just love the Americans. Says,
I guess we went north, the headwaters of the Jordan.
yeah,
Did you all go up that way?
we didn't get that far up.
The gate where the fish had the money and it's found, what was the name of the town? It was Calabria,
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
said
Well,
there'd
it's
be
pretty
the
long.
tax they owed or something was in the fish
And
amount.
Caesar, gives Caesar, what, you know, Caesar, you know, and
Yeah.
he said that, yeah.
But when we were in the hotels and staying up there, when we went through the buffets, if you walked by there, the sign over the fish that they had up there, or whatever the fish was that day, they were Peter's fish.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Peter's fish made me sick.
Oh, okay.
Tell them about the
Vacation today.
Okay.
Fresh.
Well, we got to stay in a hotel there, and we happened to be in there on a Sabbath. And of course, Bev and I, we never look at signs, and so can't read them anyhow. So we got up there and walked in, and was going to go up to. No, we was coming down from the room, wasn't we? And walked over there and caught this elevator. Somebody just got off of it, and we jumped on. Pushed the button.
Didn't work.
Didn't work. First thing, you go to one floor, stop. You go to the next floor, stop. Go to the next floor, you stop. You stop at every floor going up and down. We got down, I was asking somebody, said, what in the world? The elevator stops on every floor. Oh, you got on the Jewish elevator. Said that's on the Sabbath, they can't even push a button because that's work.
Our son works for an Orthodox Jew in New York City, they're in New York City, and they live in these really, really expensive penthouse things, and on the Sabbath, they hire somebody to come in and yell at them.
Everybody, you showed that amphitheater, like there at
Yeah.
Caesarea. You know, they had, the guy that, the pastor in Little Rock had asked me to read certain Bible verses there. And we sat up there, and the acoustics, even though most of it's gone, was just as plain.
I know it's
Like it's on a microphone.
when we were there. I didn't take a picture of it per se, but they had a little band down there, and there was another church group or something come in, but they were down in the bottom and they were playing down there, and man, you could hear them just as plain as if you were sitting right there in front of them.
Can't remember the verse, I got it marked in my Bible, but, and then that's also where they showed that, if you, when you saw that on those bleachers or where they were, and looked to your right, there was a long, straight, it was where they had cherry races.
Yeah.
Did you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got to go down to the stables.
Oh.
That was up on the side.
Oh, it was, okay. Well, that Masada was something, wasn't it?
It was.
Oh, my gosh, the gardens and the way they had it was huge.
They had water up there too.
That's right.
Well, that's why I said that cistern.